But as far as they're concerned, they were part of a fully fledged, comprehensive, completely transparent and open consultative mechanism. Now, in terms of what we'll be doing with consultations, we won't be necessarily, except if asked. So if the UN is asked to facilitate a consultative process, of course we would immediately step forward, but we will not be, in a sense, proactively doing that because we recognize we're now in the intergovernmental phase.
Yeah, thank you for a fascinating presentation, and thank you also for not speaking as the UN chief here, because it was really, I think, very, very rich and interesting. I think that in the last session, the developing countries had been expressing a very serious concern about they didn't want the document to be open. I mean, they said it should be frozen, it should not be tinkered with. So you said, I mean, that the Secretary General's report generally goes into the dustbin. Because we've been hearing that apparently, it'll be rewritten and the 17 bones which are coming will be cut down to 8, etc., etc. We have, maybe because major groups have been talking to the people who will write these reports, and that's what we've been hearing. And I think that's some of the concern which was coming out of the developing countries. So there, and they wanted, whether it's agreed or not, that the SDGs should be sealed and then go into the General Assembly. So kind of I wanted some further inputs from you on that, but also the question that, if the SDGs are opened up, like you said, it is still big, it's unmanageable, it's 17 goals, 169 targets. But for example, SRHR, the co-chairs actually put in reproductive rights. It was like bitterly resisted by a lot of countries. But if that's opened up, developed countries made it very clear they'll open up goal-specific MOI, and then foreign occupation will be opened up. I mean, where do you see, just in your personal, because you've been, you have the years of experience, how do you see, I mean, if it's opened up, the whole Pandora's box opens up, or do we then live with 17 goals? And do we convince our governments to live with it? Because if you open it up, a lot of good things may go out. But how do we tackle this huge thing?
No, if I can, I think it goes very well with what Ranjati just said, is that if I can ask you also, when you respond to her, to just add, if you could also respond to her comments, if you heard them on the private sector in this process and how the North has been pushing the private sector as kind of the people who are going to fund some of this. And at the same time, I mean, it's a related concern about private sector takeover or infiltration of some of the UN agencies themselves, especially UNICEF, UN Women, WHO, maybe.
Okay. On this, very interesting questions. On the point about is the report frozen? This is the issue that I was referring to about who has power in the UN. Does the Secretariat have power? Do the member states have power? The big worry, the big suspicion is that the Secretary General's office is going to take the proposal from the Open Working Group and rewrite it. The famous story about how the original MDGs were done when 4 boys went down into the basement, closed the door, and wrote them. The deep suspicion is that precisely the same thing will happen. That's why a number of countries, including India, have signaled to the Secretary General that that better not happen, that they expect the negotiating process to be done on the basis of what the Open Working Group submits. Here's the rub. Last year, the General Assembly gave the Secretary General a mandate. And India voted for that mandate. And the mandate is write a synthetic report. So the Secretary General is saying, I'm perfectly, you asked me to do this. Don't tell me now not to. You asked me to do it a year ago. There will be a Secretary General report. The question is what actually happens to it. I'm betting on the fact, I think most people in New York would probably agree, that the basis of negotiation will not be his report, it will be the Open Working Group report. This is a Pandora's box. This is why 4 men in the year 2000 went down and wrote the MDGs, because once you start an intergovernmental process, you are in the very unpredictable, quite scary world of compromises, half-said things, gentlemanly agreements. Right? And this is really hard to do. So I think that probably will happen. I mean, there's no question that the report will be adopted in its whole. None, absolutely none. But once you start opening, as you rightly put it, Pandora's box, it's unpredictable what will happen after that. On the issue of the role of the private sector, you're absolutely correct, sir, that rich countries are saying that they're poor now, you know, because they so badly managed capitalism, that now someone else has got to pick up the tab. They are squiggling out of their historic responsibilities to compensate for the way that they have behaved over the last 170 years. And the developing countries, which is why I made the point when I was talking about the vested interests of different groups, the developing countries have said, not yet, you still owe, you still pay, you still have to pay. So whenever you hear people talk about the private sector, that's code for not our job anymore, not our responsibility, someone else has to take it over. Poor countries of the world are not prepared to accept that. India definitely is not prepared to accept that. Interestingly, China is.
At the cost of keeping everybody from tea or coffee, yes.
No, just wanted to know your opinion, please, about some of the indications that I got in the last meeting at UNSCAP at Bangkok, on the meeting on accountability. It was openly said by the Under Secretary General, that this was a hurriedly organized meeting on the orders of the Secretary General. He said that there has to be a consultative process and consult the regional kind of CDOs on the question of what accountability mechanism should be developed. The another indicator was that about who is that Amina Mohammed. She was there, she came there and she said, and she has a special meeting with the civil society groups after the general meeting. She wanted to, and she said, we said, how much time you have? And she said, as much as you need before I leave for the airport. Of course, she did not leave for the airport, but about 2 hours, like that. And she said that she had no this kind of statement, nowhere by any means what Ranjari said that she said earlier in New York. She said that we'll bring it to 8 or 10 kind of thing. This time she was saying, make sure that whatever you say, including the rule of law, that they are incorporated in the system. That is the kind of thing. And she also said, I've lost my voice. I mean, I used to be so active, but after joining the UN Women, what I feel, not UN Women, UN system, what I feel I cannot say. So we thought that she had physically lost her voice, but then she explained what she meant. So question is that she was trying to say maintaining the balance, agreeing with the civil society's statement. So I think the indication is very much on the Secretary General's side that CSOs have to play a major role in consultative process. Do you get this kind of thing? And particularly they are a bit worried on the 2 questions, or 3. One was the rule of law. On the one hand, there is so much talk on the corruption and other things, and on the other hand, the rule of law is by and large not even included now in this 17 open working SDG, draft SDG, I call them. The another concern is gender equality. China took the lead in terms of no ownership rights to women of productive assets and land. And this was suspended for some time, but it has come back now. It is included in that. So that means that there is some concern, serious concern about the gender equality. And third concern was that really that what kind of process will there be, this is the question, will there be a Secretary General's order to have the national consultations also? Because these were very summary consultations. They might go in the before that it's finalized. They might say that, okay, that there is a UN system at the national level. Why the national level system do not really consult the civil society? Or you think it will not happen? Thank you.
On the question of consultation, the current Secretary General was raked over the coals for the way that the original MDGs were taken. And he was told, in no uncertain terms, there has to be a global consultative process. So figure it out and do it. He was told that. It was a sine qua non for the beginning of the SDG process. What happens is that coming out of Rio, there's agreement to set up 2 open working groups, the one on finance and the one on sustainable development goals. They don't meet forever. And the Secretary General gets really irritated and says, fine, if the intergovernmental part of the UN isn't going to do its job, I'm going to move ahead. And he creates the high-level panel, and he says to the UN across the world, hold national consultations, go, we're going. Of course, as soon as he did that, immediately, like within 2 days, both working groups stand up and start working. He accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, which was to jumpstart the intergovernmental process. I will be very candid with you. I do not in any way impugn or distrust the intention of the Secretariat in the consultative process. But there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the process is fundamentally intergovernmental in nature. So I'm not saying that we are not serious about consultation, but I am absolutely saying that there is no assumption whatsoever on the part of anyone who matters that that process will drive the negotiations. The negotiations will be driven through the intergovernmental process. In terms of your point about, I love the way you put this when you say, will the Secretary General order? As you probably know, the Secretary General has absolutely no authority. None. In fact, there's a great story about the last Secretary General, Kofi Annan, who was standing outside of the elevator. The Secretary General is on the 37th floor. Sometimes he moves up to the 38th floor of the UN building. So he's standing outside of the elevator, special elevator going. He's standing outside of the elevators. And here comes the permanent representative from Russia. And he says, good morning, sir. I see that you are managing your building. Don't forget, sir, that's your role. This is to the Secretary General of the UN. In other words, this is like one of the most powerful countries in the world saying, your job is nothing more than managing this building. You do nothing more than that. So it would be really unthinkable for the Secretary General to issue an order to everybody, except of course the bureaucrats who have to work for him. We get ordered around the clock, but never to the member states.
Thank you. I think I see something at the back. So, sorry, we're going to have to cut it because we're already over time. But there's going to be time for discussion later on. And hopefully all the panelists are staying back. So, time for tea and Ajay, 15 minutes? 15 minutes, please. Thanks.